Hello and welcome to the long-awaited episode 27 of the Tea in Tokyo podcast. My name is Somya.
And I'm Ellie.
And what do we talk about this time?
So this week we do a coronavirus in Japan update. We did some different training and certifications at work, and Somya lone wolfed it and went to Tokyo's largest park.
Yep, that's coming up right now. So this is our first episode in a while, so we thought we should give, a little bit of an update on what's happening in our lives and what's happening in Japan. It's been like 2 weeks since our last episode, and, certain things have changed, although a lot has stayed the same. Let's talk about coronavirus first. So, all our friends and family and stuff back in New Zealand, they're enjoying their lives. Everything's gone back to normal there. It's as if nothing ever happened.
Yeah, honestly, they're living their best lives. All of the Instagram posts are of them skiing, snowboarding, just having wonderful winterland adventures.
Yeah, but here, like most of the world, coronavirus is still going on.
On the rise in Japan.
Yeah, so cases are actually kind of increasing every day here. Since mid-June, it's kind of skyrocketed since then. It's not crazy amounts. There's around 13 to 1,600 new cases per day.
I wouldn't say mid-June, I'd say end of June. It's suddenly July, August, it suddenly got really high.
Yeah, there's 13 to 1,600 new cases per day, and around 400 to 600 of them are in Tokyo.
It's a bit of an exaggeration. I feel like 300 to 400 of them are in Tokyo, right? Are we looking at... have we been doing different research on different pages?
Yeah, well, the other day there was 600, right? Which is the most it's ever been. In one day in Tokyo.
Well, in Japan, there was 2,000, a week ago.
So it's even,
Yeah, true.
And in terms of work, for us, things haven't changed a whole lot, apart from the fact that it's just so quiet. A lot of our students, the reason it's quiet is because a lot of business people aren't going to work now. A lot of people are still doing work from home. Yeah, a lot of my students, when I do actually see them, talk about how they're still doing work from home and there's no plans of them going back to the office.
Yeah, and a lot of them talk about how they're avoiding a commute. So, the main reason that they're still coming to our work is because they live nearby. So it's anyone who doesn't live, within walking distance has, not been wanting to catch the train to come in, which is completely fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. I had a student today who 2 months ago, she said that she is going back to work. That was the last time I saw her. But then today she said that her work changed their mind because of the increase in cases.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to go to work for the rest of the year.
I had a student a couple of days ago. He was quite an older guy. He lived in Osaka or something because it was an online class. But he hasn't left his house since this whole thing started. His children and his grandchildren bring food to his house because he's immune compromised.
Yeah.
So he's been, and because he's a CEO, he doesn't he just zooms in for everything.
Right.
His actual work responsibilities, I think he's semi-retired, but it's one of those things where he's and he doesn't plan on leaving the house for a while more. So the fact that we're doing online classes now is good for him because he's not socializing with anyone.
Cases just went over 50,000 today.
In Tokyo?
Japan.
Japan.
In Japan, yeah. And there's 1,047 deaths. We had a case the other day at work, right? Apparently. Not at our work.
So in Tokyo, in another studio, it's kind of frustrating because the only reason we know this is because we're on some Facebook groups, which are they're not the best groups, they're pretty negative. They're basically people go to complain, and sometimes I just don't need that sort of negativity in my life. We both always try to stay pretty positive about our work because it's your work. You've got to be positive about it. You can't just complain constantly. But it's still good to be in these groups for this reason because there's been no official announcement that this place had a case, but people who work there got calls saying not to come in for the next 2 days because there was a confirmed case in the studio. And then they wouldn't tell the employees if it was a teacher, if it was one of the Japanese staff, if it was a student, who had it. And the only reason we now know it was a teacher is because one of the teachers at the studio is really good friends outside of teaching with one of their students who sent them a copy of the letter they received saying it was a teacher who had it. But our company won't tell anyone what day that teacher taught, like what time they were there. Obviously who it is, fair enough not to share that, that's privacy. But you've got to say what day they were there, right? So that people can be more, like, conscious of if they were potentially exposed.
Yeah, in terms of contact tracing, this is, like, really bad.
Yeah, because they go on and on about how it's all about keeping the privacy and, you've got to respect people's privacy. But this is a pandemic. Like, you can respect privacy to a point, right? Like...
Yeah, and they're only closing for 2 days, or, like, 1.5 days.
Yeah.
Which is surprising. I thought they said they were going to close for like a week at least.
I was so sure that we were told that it would close for 2 weeks if there was any confirmed cases. Because they've been like really like, make sure you tell us if you feel unwell at all, because if you end up getting sick, we have to close for 2 weeks, which it's kind of like guilt tripping, because they were basically like, it's your fault if no one can go to work.
Well, that's the thing. As it goes on, like, people kind of take it less and less seriously, but you also kind of have to, because eventually, you kind of have to go back to some sort of a normal life, I guess. But the problem is that it's just getting worse, so it's like, all the measures that they took months ago, like, technically we should be doing that still now, and even greater.
But the thing that annoys me is we know the studio that this teacher had it now, thanks to the student who shared the information. But, like, there was... So this is kind of like the next point we're going to be talking about, but we've done a couple of like trainings, like certifications through our work lately, and in both of the trainings that we've done so far, there was people from that studio. And in one of the ones I did, a girl who I was partnered with the whole time, she had been meant to attend another certification the day before, but she was unwell, so she cancelled it. And then she went to call up to cancel the one she came to with me, but they were like, are you sure they won't be doing this training for another couple of months? If you're feeling well enough, you should go in. So she went in and we were partnered. We had lunch together, so obviously we weren't wearing masks when we were eating lunch. We caught the train home together. And I'm like, was she the one who had it? Because she had the symptoms the day before. Like,
yeah, honestly.
It's just put me on a bit of a
Could have been
alert. Her. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing it wasn't. Surely they would have called people if they'd attended the...
I don't know, because if you're not going to tell... Well, I mean, I guess they did tell the studio. I mean, if people don't have to come to work for 2 days...
But that was like, just because they were closing the studio itself to disinfect. Like they've not required the staff to self-isolate or anything.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like they probably would tell everyone that was at a certification that, there was somebody there with coronavirus. But then again, after what happened with that studio, I feel like maybe they wouldn't tell you.
Especially because that studio it's like the busiest one for our company, I'm pretty sure. So maybe that's why they don't want to close it. Because I think it was the first studio they opened.
Yeah.
And it's the busiest, so maybe that's why they're not closing it for 2 weeks, because they just can't afford to. Yeah, I don't know, it's just one of those things where, like, I feel like everyone's becoming very complacent with coronavirus right now, and, like, this, for me, I don't know for you, is, like, a big reminder that it's still, like, still out there and it's still dangerous, Like, I kind of think that, but then at the same time, we do go on the train quite a bit, even though, I mean, we're not quite a bit, like, we're on the train going to work. Yeah.
And then we're on the train, like, occasionally we might go to, like, a park or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard, eh? I feel like the cases are increasing, but you do kind of have to put in perspective, like, 400... Like, let's say there's 600 cases in Tokyo every day, which is, like, at the extreme. Even 600 cases, when you think about a place that has 30 million people, like, that's not a crazy amount.
But then we're also both super aware that they're not testing that many people.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. The only reason the cases are going up now... well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is the fact that they're actually
sounding like Donald Trump right there. Something you better keep away from that territory.
Yeah, I know. That's actually making me sound really bad, because I feel like I'm Donald Trump last week. He's an idiot. That's not what I mean. What I mean is we know for a fact that they were not testing many people early on. Because, we know, we talked about this before, where we know specific people who went in to get tested, and then they told them that they weren't going to get tested. So we know that for a fact. And also, it's kind of suspicious that a place with so many people has so few cases.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one of the things why cases are increasing now, because they're actually, they're properly doing tests.
I think the number of tests they're doing is still pretty low for the population size.
Yeah,
like,
true.
they're doing the same number of tests that they did in Christchurch, a city with 300,000 people compared to 30 million. So, like, I mean, yeah. They're doing more tests, though. They are increasing. I think it's because they've accepted, like, the Olympics definitely officially didn't happen this year. So they've realised that there's no point in keeping the cases down. And if anything, they've got such a low number of deaths that if they have more cases and less deaths, it kind of makes them look even better.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, yeah, we've got a lot of cases, but, our population is healthy enough to cope with it. Although, the other thing that got me the other day was, I was talking with this guy from work, and, like, he's, like, pretty, like, right-wing, I say with, like, quotations. And Sonia, the first time he met him, like, called it. Sonia could just tell. I don't know how. I couldn't tell at all. But we were walking home from work the other day, and we caught the train together. And I can't remember, like, what the exact conversation was, but I was basically complaining about how I didn't like that there's become this, like, culture around, like, almost making people feel guilty if they get sick. Because some guy at work was saying, like, oh, well, if you get sick, you're responsible for everyone at work having to then lose 2 weeks worth of income. And I was like, that's not how it works. You can't, like, guilt someone about sickness. It's not something they can help. Which is, like, that was the point I was making, that I don't like that this is sort of, like, the way we're going with this. That's ridiculous. Like, we still have to commute, we still have to go to the supermarket, we can't completely self-isolate. And this other guy I was with was then, like, revealed that he is fully, like, one of those people who doesn't think coronavirus is serious. He doesn't care if he gets sick, because he's, like, a healthy young man. He's not going to be that negatively affected. It's, like, likely that he won't be that affected. He doesn't believe that the side effects, like, the after symptoms are that bad. Like, all this stuff, talking about how, like, not that many people die, and I was like, no wonder we've got an increase of cases if this is, like, the common viewpoint.
Yeah, and I was saying I kind of want him to get, like, coronavirus now. I know you're not meant to, like, wish ill upon people, but it's like, maybe get, like, a medium case of coronavirus and see what happens.
It just really frustrated me because, like, he was talking about, it's only people with pre-existing conditions that get it, and it's like everyone could have a pre-existing condition. Pretty much anyone over, like, the age of 40 has probably got something that would count as a pre-existing condition. Like, they've probably experienced something in their life that means that they would have that. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, asthma would count as a pre-existing condition, which, like, you get. So, like, technically you've got pre-existing conditions. And, like, I don't know, he was just complaining about it, and I was like, okay, look, I'm going to stop you there because you shouldn't talk about it like this, because one of our workmates, her uncle just died from coronavirus. So you can have your opinions, but maybe be careful about how vocal you are with them, because she is obviously, like, very upset about coronavirus right now. And his response was just like, oh, well, he probably had a pre-existing condition. And I was like, what? That doesn't matter. Like, I don't know, it really made me feel a little bit negative about humanity, this conversation with this guy.
Yeah, although something that made me feel a little bit better is yesterday there was a anti-coronavirus march that kind of was meant to happen, where, like, 100 people are apparently going to get on the trains and try to purposely spread coronavirus, to show that it's not a big deal. And then, I don't know if the train thing happened, but they were in Shinjuku, I think, and they did, like, a rally there. But I think it was, like, 40 to 50 people showed up. It made me feel a little bit better, because I was like, okay, there's half as many people as I thought. But yeah, it's kind of weird where in a place like Japan, because everyone kind of, as soon as you think of an anti-vax or an anti-coronavirus person, like, you just think of, well, I guess they go hand in hand with anti-vaxxers. You kind of think of America. You
picture, like, a southern accent with, like, I don't know, like, a big fat body and, like, a Make America Great Again head.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally what my mind conjures, which I know is not right. Like, that's such a negative stereotype. But yeah.
Yeah, but it's weird, like, just seeing someone Japanese like that. Yeah. And one thing we were actually saying is one of the reasons why I reckon cases, like, we were saying that they're probably not testing people, so the cases seem lower. But also when you look at, like, hospitalizations and even deaths, like, they're pretty low in Japan.
Yeah.
Especially compared to the population. So we're thinking that's probably because of the fact that everyone here wears face masks.
And also, like, the population is healthier than Western countries.
Oh, yeah,
like,
true, yeah.
There's a 3% rate of obesity. I think it's, like, this in Korea are, like, the lowest rate in the world. Which obviously comes along with all of its, like, comorbidities and stuff that are associated with that. So, like, less likely to have, like, a more intense version of coronavirus.
Yeah, I'm wondering if other places in the world are doing what Japan is doing in terms of, like, if you go out, I would say 99.9% of people have a mask on.
Yeah.
And also in every single shop, there's hand sanitizer. I'm
which
wondering.
Sometimes they have a person whose sole job is to stand there and put their hand sanitizer on.
Yeah. I wonder how many places are doing that, and I reckon that probably has something to do with. But yeah, you're right. The obesity also is probably a big thing of why the cases here are so low, or at least the deadly cases are so low.
Yeah. Although they have such an old population, you kind of...
Yeah, that's why everyone was, like, that's what I was saying as well. I was like, how the hell... Like, that's why early on I didn't believe the cases, because I was like, how the hell can there be so many old people here and, like, nobody has coronavirus? But then the fact that nobody's dying, it's like, okay, well, maybe, you know, they're kind of healthy. And all the cases that are happening right now, like 85% of them are happening to young people, like 20 to 40.
Because all these dumbasses are still going out clubbing and, like, not wearing masks. And, like, that guy I was talking about from work... Like, he does wear a mask at work. He's like, it's annoying because he's like a nice, good person, but then he also has these views, and I'm like, how? But he was talking about how, you know, he's been out clubbing and stuff, and it's like crowded, and there's like no one wearing a mask. Because, like, what's the point of wearing a mask if you're in a club, like, rubbing your sweaty body up against other people? Although I wonder how much that is just like one of those negative rumor type stories where you can like scapegoat one group by being like, oh, it's all these young people going out to bars.
Yeah, but in this case we have like actual, you know, statistics to back it up, so it's alright.
I had a client the other day who, like, the whole lesson he wanted to have free conversation, and he just, like, I didn't really say much because he was just having a good old rant about, like, damn these young people and their ways.
Yeah. I was actually speaking to a girl who went clubbing, and she said that in one club she went to, everyone was wearing a mask.
I mean,
that was early on in the coronavirus saga, so maybe at one point they were doing it, and then they kind of just went, now screw it.
It just frustrates me, again, it's like this, like, blaming guilt game thing, because there's people doing that, but then at the same time some people would probably think we aren't taking it seriously enough, because we have two friends who we've like hung out with occasionally, but like, and for us it's kind of like in New Zealand when they were doing lockdown, there was like this idea of your bubble where you had 10 people in your bubble, and so I feel like for us, like, they're our bubble.
Yeah,
like that's who we're pretty much the only people they see, they're the only people we see. And so, like, for us, it's like, well, that's not bad. But I know that for another person, they might look at us and be like, oh, man, these idiots socialising, not taking it seriously.
Yeah, that's true, because we do have to take the train to get there, and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, we're already catching the train to work, so I'm kind of like, there's only, like, you know, if we're already having to commute every single day, what can you do? Like...
Although I've been, like, following some scientists on Twitter, and they were talking about how, like, the blame game has just gone way too far, where, like, there'll be articles where there'll be, like... For example, and I think this is even something that we were complaining about early on, actually, which I've kind of changed my mind about. They were complaining about how, like, you know, coronavirus cases have increased because of people in bars and people going to the park. And it's like, and he was saying that, like, you cannot, like, have those two things in the same sentence, you know? Like, going to a bar and going to a park are so different. Like, if you're in a park, like, there's the chances of getting it is so slim.
Was there those articles where they, like, showed the difference, how they'd have pictures where it looked like... From one angle, it was like people were packed next to each other walking in the park, and then from like the other side, you could see they were actually really far away. It was just like the perspective they were taking it.
No, it wasn't that, but you know, just in general, I think if you're outside, like, it's a very slim chance of, you know, catching coronavirus because you know, it just can't travel. Like the air currents and everything, like, it makes it a lot difficult.
Yeah, unless someone's like sneezing or coughing directly onto you, it's not going to happen.
So apart from coronavirus, so we had that work training. So Ellie did one without me, which was
so scary. We're so codependent lately because of coronavirus, where we're like forced to only hang out with each other. That I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to go to somewhere without Sonia.
Well, you didn't go there without me. I literally walked you all the way there.
I made Sonia, because you had to catch 3 trains to get to the training place. And as a part of that, you have to go, like, through Shinjuku Station, which is, like, not just, like, near each other. Like, you have to literally go to the other side of the station, and I always get lost. I have a really bad sense of direction.
We have been there 5 times before, though.
But I still got confused when we were going there. Like, regularly I'd be like, wait, don't we have to go this way? And you were like, no, you idiot.
Yeah, so what was the gist of that training?
Oh, yeah, so I did training so that you can... So most of our clients at our work are adults, or sometimes teenagers. But, like, most of them are business people or whatever. And you have to do special extra training to work with children. So I figured that it's like we've got so few clients right now, it's so quiet, that a good way to bring in more potential clients is to just make myself eligible for more clients. So I did the child training, kids training. And it was really fun. It was like... Because they have a whole separate textbook they work through. But because they're, like, ages, like, 6 to 10, it's, like, literally playing games. So, the textbook, you have to do 2 pages of the textbook, but it's, like, the first page is like a picture or something, and they've got to like be like, this is a couch, this is a TV, you know, like identify things. And you've got to do like heaps of drawings in the notes, and you've got to play, they recommend at least 6 games in the 40-minute lesson. So like it's literally just playing games, normally like flashcard games.
Yeah, I've sat next to people doing kids lessons before, and it sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, I think the main issue is like, you know, the thing is, and they actually told us in the class that in Japan you don't use this word, but like kids with behavioural issues is would be where there's a problem. Apparently in Japan the whole idea is like, because any role that you have, like anyone who does any job or any career, the expectation is that you are a master of that. Like you should be the top tier perfect in that job. And so you can't talk about kids having behavioural issues in a classroom, because there's this expectation that if you're a teacher, you're the best of the best. So it doesn't matter if there's a behavioural issue, it's your fault, you're responsible for it. So apparently, yeah, there's like a really extreme thing of like, if you've got a kid who's just like a horrible, like bratty, like insolent piece of crap,
Right.
you can't say to the parents, I think your child like has like oppositional defiant disorder or whatever it's called, because they'll be like, no, it's your job to control them. So there can be like, part of the lesson was basically being like, you can on occasion get these kids, but generally our work, apparently when they first do meetings with the kids, they do try to like weed out those ones if they can tell they're going to be a problem. So they do try to, but then you hear horror stories. Like one of the people at the training was talking about how at his work there was like a girl who literally stabbed one of the students, like the teacher, with a pencil. It was kind of scary learning all that, because it's like you're not like physically, you're not allowed to touch them at all, obviously, for like like they're children, but like it means that like if they're like throwing a tantrum in the middle of the class and you're responsible for them in that moment, their parent isn't there, you're officially their guardian in that scenario, you can't actually like stop them or contain them. Apparently if that happens, you don't talk to them in Japanese. You literally just have to go get a Japanese staff member. It doesn't matter if they're in like a meeting with like another adult, you have to interrupt it and be like, so-and-so is being a brat, like you need to go talk to her, because there's been issues in the past with miscommunications with the student. But on the other end, yeah, it seemed really fun if you don't get like a piece of crap kid. So
I'm thinking about doing that one, but then you have to really like kids, so I don't know if I can do that.
I don't even know if you do have to like kids. I'm not even the biggest fan of kids.
I know, but you can at least like handle them, but well, kind of actually.
No, it's literally because it's teaching a class. Like it's not. I feel like it's not the same as like being able to interact with a kid with no guidance, because there is straight up like textbook guidance.
Yeah,
like
true.
you don't even have to like talk to them. You can be like, okay, let's play this game.
Yeah.
Let's do drawings.
Yeah, so at our work we have 2 different kinds of certifications. We have that one, which is where you kind of gain new skills and you're able to do a different kind of job. You're able to do a variety of jobs.
And it's a lot more intense. It's not just that class. There's a whole lot of other stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, so for example, in that one you can teach kids. There's other ones where like, you know, you can teach the very first lesson that you have with a student. You can teach like group. You can teach students in groups.
You can
but
go
then
into this like you can. There's one where you can go to the company itself and teach like the entire company, like you do a big lecture.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that one. But then there's another one which is just general, you know, upskilling, giving yourself some more
knowledge.
Yeah, more knowledge. Yeah, and so that's ones that. Oh, by the way, we get paid for these trainings. So Ellie got paid for that one, like 2,000 yen, right?
Like nothing.
Yeah.
For like it was like 10 till like 7 or 8ish.
Yeah, it's so slow at the moment. So my last 2 months, my booking rate has been 12%, which is really, really slow. So far this month it's 7%. So it's so slow that like I need every little bit of money I can get. So I'm doing literally 4 of these trainings this month, 4 next month, which is almost like the maximum that you could do, because you know 2,000 yen is literally $30 for like, you know, 6 hours of work, but we kind of have to do it. And also, you know, it is a good way to get new skills, I guess.
Eventually, when they start doing pay rises again, we're going to be more in a position to receive them, having done the trainings as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the other type is just to upskill, right? And that's the one that we did last week. Ellie and I did it together. It was called Critical Analysis, and it's about...
No, it wasn't critical analysis.
Wasn't
it? Was
it?
Client analysis.
Oh, client analysis. Well, there you go. So I didn't really learn that much.
You didn't pay
God damn it. Alright, so it was client analysis, which is about critically analyzing your student.
I don't think the word critical was in there, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's about
Okay.
critically analyzing and figuring out... It's not... They said it wasn't a personality test. What did they say again? It was about the...
So it was about the social styles model, which I looked up, and it's a model that this, like, group sells. For, like, the last 40 years, they developed it. So it's not about personality, it's about the behaviours that people exhibit in social situations.
Yeah, the outward behaviors, like when they're interacting with people. So we learnt about, you know, what the... There's 4 different types of social styles you could have and how to interact with people who have a specific social style. So the 4 were, it was analytical, expressive, driving, and amiable. And beforehand, we actually had to do a wee little... I'm just going to... social style test, I guess, or personality test, to figure out which one we were. I was driving, and Ellie was amiable.
Which is... I don't think it's quite true for either of us, because in the actual class, I definitely, like, seemed like I was more expressive.
Yeah, I mean, they ask you which ones you think you are first, you know, and I thought I was expressive as well. But to be fair, it's just a bullcrap little test that you do, so, you know, like... What do they know, really?
And the other thing is it's on, like, a graph, which is like a... What's it called when it's, like, a 4-way graph? Is that it? Like a 4-way graph?
Yeah,
and, like,
it's so the X and Y axis, but you can go into negatives as well.
And so, like, each corner is, like, expressive, amiable, driving, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, like, for mine, I was, like, right in the middle, with, like, 1 point towards amiable, which is why they put me in amiable.
Yeah.
So, like... And, like, I'm definitely one of the, like, some people have no social style. Not meaning they have no social skill, but meaning, like, they're not actually falling into one of those groups, which is what I would be.
Yeah, and I was driving, but I was very close to the expressive side. Like, I was, like, on the line. So the way it works is the Y-axis is it's responsiveness. It's how responsive you are, which is, like, your emotions.
Yeah, literally means how expressive you are with your emotions.
And then on the X-axis, it's assertiveness. Yeah, so I was, like... positive assertiveness and negative responsiveness, I guess. Yeah, which is weird because I wouldn't say my responsiveness is negative.
Yeah, I think your responsiveness is actually
whereas
positive.
Ellie was a positive on the responsiveness, but then negative on the assertiveness.
I was technically opposite to expressive. Like, that is, like, I was the one that was, like, very far from expressive.
No, that was not...
opposite, driving the opposite.
No, opposite is... analytical from expressive, and amiable. Your opposite is driving.
Amiable was opposite from driving. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you know, we spent the whole day doing this class. We learned about that. Ellie wasn't very impressed with it.
No, my problem was, I get it. It's like a real model, but I think the way they taught it was because they asked. Like, I asked at one point. I was like, oh, so, like, what is the, like, research behind this? And, like, she didn't know, and I looked it up afterwards, and there is research behind it, but my problem was she, like, emphasized that it's not a personality test, it's a social style test, right? It has nothing to do with the internal, like, mechanisms. But then one of the exercises that we spent, like, a solid hour on was, like, the characteristics of someone with the social style, which was literally personality traits that you had to go through and list. And I was like, well, if you're saying it's a social style that has nothing to do with personality, then you can't then do a whole exercise based on what you think their personality traits will be based on this.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean, the other big thing for me was I feel like it's a model that is based on the idea, like, of behavioral psychology. So, like, 40 years ago, there was, like, this big divide between psychologists who believed that the mind is like this empty, well, not empty, but this, like, black box that you can't see into, and therefore you can never measure it. So you can only look at the, like, external, like, anecdotal stimulus and then the behavior that the person exhibits. You can't even measure what's going on inside their brain. And then on the other end, you had people who were like, no, that has nothing to do with it. It's all to do with what's inside the brain. That's what's important. And they used to, like, hate each other and, like, argue with each other. But, like, modern day psychology is smarter in that it accepts that it's both of them. Like, both are accurate. Obviously, behavior is important, but what causes the behavior internally is also important. And I feel like this whole thing was, like, old-fashioned in that it was purely behavioral. Or at least it was meant to be, and then they taught it wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, what I didn't like about it was, like, for example, we looked at pictures, right, where a guy would be wearing a suit, and you'd say, oh, that guy's driving. And then some other guy would not be wearing a suit, and you'd be like, oh, that guy is expressive. But it's like, you know, is that really going to help us with anything?
It's so dumb because you can't look at a picture and tell someone's social style.
Yeah,
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we literally looked at a guy that was in a suit, and then we had to come up with, like, all this stuff about him and his life and what he's like. And it's like, I just don't know. In fact, it's not that I don't know if that works in real life. It doesn't. You know?
Yeah.
And also, the thing that's also kind of dumb is they said that when the student first calls up our work, right, and they want, they want lessons, the Japanese counselors who take their call, they're the ones who decide what their social style is. So it's not even
based on that one phone call as well.
Yeah, it's not even the teacher in the lesson who decides, you know, while they're teaching them. It's just based on one phone call. So like they literally could have been talking for 2 minutes and they have to decide what their social style is.
And it was a phone call in Japanese as well.
Yeah, so it's like, oh man, so this person is super expressive in Japanese over the phone, but they don't know any English and they're talking to me in person. So it's like their social style is going to be completely different, you know?
Plus, you know what? That doesn't make sense in the context of the fact that half the exercises were looking at photos. Because when they give them the social style, they can't see them. So clearly, like, it doesn't have anything to do with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true as well, yeah. So what this really felt to me was, and I haven't done any of the other certs, so I don't know yet, and maybe some of the other certs are different, but what I really felt is this is our work's way of trying to add value to our jobs and to say, hey, you know, stay with us, don't go to another English learning school because, you know, we have all these different ways that you can upskill. And they've just tried to like put together this thing that they think makes sense and they think is valuable and they've like packaged together and they've delivered it to you. But really, it's just like a bunch of random crap that they've stuck together and it has
like,
no meaning really.
It's valuable to an extent because like there are some clients who it'll say they're like driving and then they fully are. But I'd say majority of the time, it's not actually that accurate. Because, like, and this was the other main problem I had with it, was, like, it's a social, like, style. Social is, like, inherently contextual. If it's to do with how you interact with the outside world, then it has everything to do with the outside, like, stimulus.
Yeah.
So, like, depending on how you, as the teacher, interact with them, that might change their style. So it kind of bugged me because I was like, basically, like, that means that it's not going to have that much value. Like, the whole, like, you know, it's talking over the phone versus being in person versus talking in Japanese versus talking in English. Like, they're the customer talking on the phone, so they're sort of like the superior, whereas in a classroom, they're the student, so they're whatever the opposite of superior is.
Inferior?
Inferior, yeah. That sounds like way too
inferior
negative.
sounds too negative, yeah.
But, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's just, like, it's one of those things where I think it has value to a point, but, like, that point, it doesn't go very far. It was interesting. It was really interesting, but I came away from it kind of, like, very skeptical about it.
Yeah, I've never done any psychology before, so to me it was a little bit interesting, but yeah, definitely really skeptical.
And, I mean, yeah, people who haven't done any sort of research into, like, social styles or behaviour or anything before would probably come away from that being like, wow, that's so cool, so interesting. But in so many senses I sound like such a pretentious dick when I say this.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Ellie did sound like a bit of a pretentious douchebag at the thing, because she was like, I have a master's in psychology.
I didn't say it like that. And
well, she didn't say it in public, but she did say it.
I said it
like,
to you.
She said it to me, yeah.
But, like, the thing is, it's like, as someone who has studied behaviour for, like, 6 to 7 years, a one-day class on social styles was very, like, substandard. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was underwhelming, but
and
like,
taught by someone who doesn't have any experience in that.
Yeah.
I think there was it. Like, the teacher was great. Don't get me wrong. She was like, I really enjoyed her teaching style, but she, like, when I asked, like, even one question, like, she very clearly just knew the content that she had to teach and not much beyond that.
Well, our next cert that we're going to do is less abstract and it's more analytical. It's about like the TOEFL exams that students take. So we'll see what that
I think
like.
that will be better. I think it will be
sure.
good. It's just, it's more like you said, like, it's more concrete. It's something that we know has, like, set rules and stuff, and I think that the people teaching it are probably going to be more, like, familiar with it than they might be with social styles.
Yeah. like I said before, I walked Ellie to her training when she did her kids one.
What a good boyfriend, eh?
And I decided that would be my favorite time to explore Shinjuku, because we haven't really explored Shinjuku that well. So I thought, yeah, that's definitely the perfect time for me. I took my camera, I took my tripod, I was going to take some awesome photos, and I did manage to get some cool photos. And I was looking for Shinjuku Gyoen Park.
It doesn't sound right.
Gyoen. That's literally it. It's Gyoen. Yeah, Shinjuku Gyoen National Garden. Gyoen, by the way, stands for Imperial Garden.
Oh, nice.
Even though it's not really an Imperial Garden, I don't really know why, but... so yeah, I was looking for that, but on the way there, I actually found another park called Shinjuku Central Garden, which is really nice. And it has a waterfall, which... It has a bit of like a hyperbole name to it. It's called Tokyo. I don't know if it's called Shinjuku or Tokyo, but it's called Niagara Falls.
Is it
and
tiny?
It's like, it's not that tiny. Like for a park, for like a man-made little, like a park waterfall, it's pretty good. But Niagara Falls seems a bit ridiculous. And yeah, I really like that park. It was like during the day, there weren't that many people. It was just like kind of like a few families walking around. There was like a guy teaching his girlfriend how to skateboard.
Oh, cute.
Like, a nice environment there. There were turtles, but it was kind of mean because it was like this man-made tiny little pond with, like, there was no vegetation in there at all. It was just concrete. It was
just like a water fountain, right?
Yeah, it was a water fountain. Yeah, exactly. And they put a couple of bricks in there so they could kind of like get out of the water. But the fact that these turtles have to spend their entire lives in that pond is pretty insane. It did make me think that Japanese people are definitely a lot better than other people because like nobody steals these turtles. They're just in there. I feel like honestly, if there are turtles, I just don't know that people wouldn't steal them in Christchurch. I feel like they would be stolen.
Although maybe if it was in like a park where there was like, it was known that there was like CCTV cameras.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it was a park, if it was a pond that looked like a natural pond, I don't think people would, because there's something about that. Like, it kind of looks like they're in their environment and like, But when it's just a water fountain, I don't know, it looks a bit weird. But yeah, that was kind of cool. And then, so I walked to Shinjuku National Garden, Gyoen National Garden. And man, it is so goddamn hot. People warned us that after the rainy season it would get hotter, but I didn't believe them because it was already so hot.
I feel like every time we've done a podcast, we've been like, oh my god, it's so hot. It's even hotter than we thought. And once again, it is true. And apparently it's going to get hotter.
June, July is the rainy season, so it was raining like really frequently. It's pretty crazy the difference between rainy season and non... Like, because this is the first time we've been in a country where it has those sort of seasons, and... Like, it actually makes perfect sense. It literally has not rained because it's not the rainy season.
Yeah.
It hasn't rained once in August. But in July, it was raining all the time. And yeah, man, it is so goddamn hot. To the point where when I was walking around in Shinjuku, I thought I was, like, maybe the first time in my life, but the only other time that I can think of being this hot is when I used to live in Sydney. Like, I used to play basketball when it was like 40 degrees out, which I don't know how I did.
I think I would literally die. Like, I'm not even I would genuinely die.
I literally thought I was going to get sunstroke, eh?
Yeah.
It was so hot. I went through like 4 or 5 bottles of water. I was constantly buying water.
And you're actually a little bit darker. Like, you've got a little bit of a tan going on right now.
I was walking around for 5 hours in the sun. And
with no sunblock on, by the way, so you're going to age like 10 years just from that.
I know. I've never been so sweaty either. I was so goddamn sweaty. It was ridiculous.
It's so gross.
But yeah, man, this garden is really cool though. It's a massive garden. It's basically the Central Park of Japan, of Tokyo, I should say. And it's actually 3 gardens mixed in one. So there's the French garden, the traditional Japanese garden, and the English garden. The English garden is like these really big fields. Right, it's basically just like a park with no like trees or anything. Just big fields where you can relax and play games and stuff like that. The French garden is this really cool place with heaps of flowers, like a botanical gardens almost.
Oh, nice.
And it has like these really cool big trees that you can walk through. They're like symmetrical at either side, and that's actually where I literally fell asleep on one of the benches there, because the benches are just lined with people just sleeping on them, and I was like, sweet, I'll be part of this.
Yeah, who knows if somebody just joined like a homeless people community.
Yeah, I might have. And then the traditional Japanese garden, well, yeah, it's literally like, picture a Japanese garden, you got it. The bridges, the traditional like houses, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was a really great place. You have to pay to get in, which, like, I was thinking, right, like, for example, in New Zealand, like in Christchurch, in our main park, you don't have to pay to get in. Like, you don't have to pay to get in any park, I don't think. And on the one hand, it's kind of bad that you have to pay because, like, a lot of people can't experience it then. Like, it's not that expensive. It's 500 yen. It's like $6.
Yeah, but some people may not have $6 to spare on a
Yeah. But on the other hand, man, it was so clean and so quiet. There's barely anyone in there.
They would definitely help with the upkeep, eh?
Yeah. I went in, during the down to work day, so I guess people are, busy with work. But still, it's so quiet. I was like, man, I wouldn't mind if more parks were like $3 to get in. It kind of cleans the place up a little bit.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, it probably wasn't homeless
Keeping
people.
the rebel out of my neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I got a lot of photos of dragonflies. Really cool dragonflies. They're like multicolored.
You also took lots of flower photos.
Yeah, flower photos. I even saw some frogs. And there was a cool greenhouse as well that has like, rare... Actually, I don't know if they're rare, but they're weird looking. Unique, I guess. Flowers and plants from like around the world. And yeah, it was just a nice trip. Honestly, this garden would probably be up there, I reckon. If you're coming to Tokyo, I would say it's like my top 5.
But I haven't even been yet. Now I have to go.
Yeah. This is my top 5 to go, I reckon. I could definitely go back. Because there's just so much to do there. It's so massive.
Well, you've got to go back with me then.
Yeah. But yeah, that was it. Nice trip. Nice little trip while Ellie was at training.
Busy working away.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was pretty much it. Anything else to add in this episode?
No, I mean, the reason we took so long to record this one is because, like, to be honest, we haven't been up to much since Nagano. Like, we've been working, right? Like...
Or at least trying to work. I haven't, like, last week I worked once, like, one day last week. And it's not because, well, actually, to be fair, we did actually have a couple of days off. But the other days I put myself available, I just didn't have any work. It's been so freaking quiet.
It's kind of, I was saying to Sonia just before, it's kind of stressful because I've tried, like, very hard to be very positive. Well, not positive, but just, like, not negative, right? About, like, finances and stuff. But it is, like, a little bit stressful because, like, we are very, like, we've worked it out, like, we can totally pay rent and, like, bills and stuff this month. But, like, that's not how you want to live. You want to be earning more than that.
Yeah, I was thinking this the other day where I was like, how long do we just go where we can just pay rent, because we always talk about, oh, well, at least we can pay rent, we can pay the bills, but it's like, man, do we
that's
really...
such a bare minimum.
Yeah, do we really just want to pay rent and bills for, like, what, like a year? Like, how long are we gonna go?
I was on the phone to my mum the other day, and she was saying the same thing. She was like, at what point will you guys think, okay, we just need to move back to New Zealand?
Yeah.
The problem is, though, moving back to New Zealand is just more unrealistic than ever because they've introduced a fee for quarantine when you arrive. Now it's $3,000 to quarantine. And, like, we don't have $6,000. We can't afford to return, so...
Yeah, just to show you how, like, quiet it's been. So, our last paycheck, I got paid $2,300, 2,300 New Zealand dollars, right? So $2,300 for a month's work, where at a good month, like, you'd probably be getting paid $3,000 to $3,500. So that is already a reduction. But this month, I've worked it out. I'm going to get paid $700 for an entire month's worth of work.
Oh, it's so stressful.
And at the way it's going at the moment, next month, I'll get paid $400. So, like $400 for a month's work. Our rent is $1,500. So, with my $700, we can pay half of rent.
But I'm earning a little bit more than that, so, And we also still haven't got our government money. We're still waiting on that. And we just found out the other day that we do actually qualify for, like, a rent assistance. I think, apparently. Someone else at our training was saying
as long as we're being a little bit sneaky with how we do our taxes, but...
But honestly, I don't even think we had to be sneaky. I think they were earning that little that, like, we'd qualify.
Alright, we've been rambling on for too long, I reckon.
I know, yeah.
We should end there. Okay, well, so yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to our podcast once again.
Hope you enjoyed the update.
And, we'll see you next time. Okay, bye.
Bye.